Shake it, baby. Oh yeah, shake it, shake it, shake it.
You know, I mean, listen, Islam Makhachev, no longer the pound for pound number one. That's Ilia Topuria. But by far, one of the biggest names in the sport. I'm just surprised. I'm not that I'm saying he's not a star big enough, because he is. He's Islam Makhachev. You know, Madison Square Garden versus Jack Della Maddalena. It's a tremendous fight. And of course, if that is the main event. I thought that might have been in like Abu Dhabi or maybe even in Australia. But still, if that's what Habib is saying, then obviously that's going to be the main event. I don't know what's going on. So as I say, how that relates to Madison Square Garden, I would have thought Ilia Topuria versus Paddy Pimblett would have blown the absolute roof off Madison Square Garden. So I wasn't, it's not that I'm talking bad about Islam Makhachev versus Jack Della Maddalena. That's a phenomenal fight. But Ilia versus anyone, because I think Ilia is the biggest name in all the sport right now. And I think the timing would have worked out for Ilia at MSG. You can't put Islam. You can't put Ilia as the main event and Islam as the co-main event.
Unless they're trying to set that up for the next fight, where if they both win their fights, they're right there in the same building. I don't see it happening either. But that would be some epic shit.
That would be some epic shit, but it ain't gonna happen. No way.
Because one of those guys is gonna say, "No way, why am I the co-main to?" Where really it doesn't matter at the end of the day. If they're talking pay-per-view points, that's just only gonna get so many more pay-per-views for both those guys if they're stacked together. But I see egos getting involved potentially there.
Yeah.
The reason I kind of quit doing this social media stuff, I haven't been on social media this whole year. I have someone run it for me, and I feel better than I've ever felt. I don't have that little buzz, that little anxiety buzz throughout the day that I kind of used to get, that I was just like, I'd get on Instagram, and I was like, I didn't like the way it made me feel. I felt like I was kind of consumed by sugar. Like I wanted to just be Sean, and every time I opened up that phone, it's like, okay, if this many millions of followers, this like I see that, it does something with your brain, and I needed to get away from that.
That's progress. I'm gassed. Seems that if one lap of walking can get you there tired. But that was my almost third lap today, so I'm making some good progress. Hope you guys are doing the same with your laps.
If I'm breaking news to you, then I'm not sharing my opinion. I'm sharing a fact with you. It's Arman versus Ilia. That is 100% the plan. But to your point, let's think about that just for a minute. And Islam really, he was not correct in what he was saying, where he said that this is promotion. He had that wrong, but it wasn't just because the UFC is looking at those guys fighting. That's also a misconception. The UFC has no interest in those guys fighting. That was the fight. Ilia just moved to the division. That fight was an opportunity. They didn't want it, but they didn't want it to the point that they've told Ilia, you can come to 50, but you got to stop. Don't do this to us again. And they told Islam, hey, we'll take you to 70. We'll give you the opportunity, but don't do this to us again. We want figureheads of division. Mm-hmm. I don't agree. I actually don't agree. One of the few things that I disagree with the UFC on, I love champion versus champ. I think it's a huge deal, belt and belt. But they don't. They don't have any regrets that they didn't make Anderson versus John Jones. They don't have any regrets that they didn't make Anderson versus GSP. So, this is a very consistent belief that UFC is not working towards that fight. That is false. But what Islam doesn't understand is you have a very hard time recognizing divisions and not carrying that to your pound for pound list. So you don't have a choice. They can do anything they want with 1 through 10, but champion is champion. So you're looking at a pound for pound list. You got a guy who's not a champion. That's Islam. He gave the belt up. So you would now have a non-champion coming over all of your champions. It's the same thing where John Jones returns, but he doesn't return to the list. Where are you going to put him and how are you going to do it? But John hasn't gotten any worse. John's not worse today with those 9 days off than he was 2 months ago when he was number one. So the whole thing gets a little bit off. But I think that's the part that Islam didn't understand. Not to mention, it was paperwork and paperwork alone that stopped Ilia from being the most decorated fighter that we've ever seen. It was not a punch and it was not a loss. They elected to do Volk versus Lopez, which means they stripped Ilia. They elected to not put up the BMF title when Ilia fought Max. If they would have done this, just paperwork was different. Outcomes are the same. Paperwork's different. You got Ilia Topuria, the 45-pound champion, the 55-pound champion, and the reigning BMF champion. There is no way that that guy can be anything but one.
Last thing that I want to say is sometimes when I'm doing the Show Me the Mind podcast, I cannot articulate like that. I cannot say the things that I believe in because it's a 1 hour show and I have to be funny. You know, I have to be funny. I want to be funny.
Sure.
I'm speaking on my second language. And so that's why I can understand why the people clip and they say, hey, this guy is dumb, you know? And if you think yourself as dumb, think the people that watch the Brandon Schaub show on YouTube, the comedian, the special, that's fucking terrible. Okay, brother? Even I can do better than that shit, brother. And I don't even speak English and I can be funnier than you, my brother.
My
so
gosh. Papa catches the stray. Oh dear. Oh
okay.
dear.
You know what it is? I'm in it for big fights, and at the same time, I do want to get to a title fight. So how I see it now is I'm a person that can fight in both divisions, and depending on what the best path is to the top, which also includes exciting fights. So for example, next year, you know, obviously once a year or sometimes twice, but mainly at the beginning of the year, they like to come back to the UK. Again, I still think a Leon Edwards fight is a great fight for the UK. And obviously that's going to be at welterweight. So if that's offered to me, I'd 100% accept that kind of fight, you know what I mean? But in terms of progression and moving forward, if there's, you know, if I'm told, you know, take this, I don't know who next, but take this fight next, and then, you know, you're in line to be a title eliminator or something where it seems to be less political, then I'll stay up here.
Was the Leon fight ever in play?
Again, these are people that I asked for. I kind of only want it really in the UK anyway, so technically it wouldn't have been in play until next year anyway. So, but yeah, like it hasn't come up. I've mentioned it many times, but it hasn't come up, or hasn't seemed to be reciprocated from anywhere else. But again, I think everything's timing. Like I said, I think if it aligns for next year, that would be perfect. And I genuinely. It's out of respect, and it's more to do with what it does for other up and coming UK talents that can see two young guys that are from their country, from their areas, and that can really motivate and inspire them to say, look, I can do this too, to see two people at the top of their game fighting in a main event. That'd be
This is the knife. What happened when I touch you? Cut, cut, cut. This is the knife. Now put your hands high. This is the knife. Move, move. You see the knife there? You see? Don't think this is my hands. Because you see, when I give the information for you, this is the knife, you move. Why? Because it's danger, huh? That's the game. Close your hands. That's the knife. Is a knife